sit still. I said, I can't. Something's tickling me. She thought I was crazy. She said, well, open your coat. I unbuttoned my coat and opened it up. There was a mouse.
Stories. Everybody has them. The stories of our parents, grandparents, and our friends remind us who they are.
That's kind of what I think it is, too, is memories. Growing up, my dad was an English teacher.
How they got here, and what they've learned on the way. What if you could collect as many of your loved ones' stories in a high-quality audio format to keep forever? What if you could share the sound of your loved one's voice, their laughter, and their thoughtful manner with your children? Or when you are simply driving to work?
He spent literally 3 months in North Dakota freezing buckets of ice water to make this awesome ice fort that we never spent time in, but it was amazing. For the moment it was done.
Well, you can with a Sunnyside of Life biography. Produced here at Sunnyside Farm Studios. I'll sit down with your loved one for 1, 2, or several sessions to record their stories.
I think my students are going to have good memories of me.
You'll receive the full raw recording, an edited selection arranged in audio chapters for easy reference, and produced segments you can use for family gatherings, special moments, or any time you just want to hear your loved one's voice.
And those are probably my most cherished things.
Share it with your family and make it a keepsake, because that's what stories are. Keepsakes of the time we had together.
Never forget that. I was petrified of mice after that forever.
Email your query for more information to Troy at sunnysidefarmstudios.com. The email is also in this show's notes. Let me record your loved one's story so you can share the sunny side of their life in their own words for years to come.
I actually do kind of remember that now.
I'm Troy Thompson. Over the last 15 years, our family has worked hard to create a place we call the center of the universe. A place where our kids and someday our grandkids can come home to and laugh, have fun, learn how to work, pray, worship God, and be a place to celebrate life with all our friends. After a quarter century in uniform, I put away one set of boots for another, working on our acreage, improving the land, fixing some structures, and building new ones. We say, give back to the community, be useful, keep your hands calloused, and spread the gospel. This is a little place in a little state right in the middle of flyover country, from which cries out a voice in the wilderness to all who might want to listen, learn, and laugh along with us. This is our American dream. Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome to the Sunny Side of Life. Here we are in December, and I am happy to report that we have 3 fun, short, little produced stories just for your Christmas holiday season entertainment. And I'm happy to also report that they are original pieces that came from my father-in-law, Denny Burkholder. Now, Heidi and I have been married for just over 20 years now. And I first became aware of my father-in-law back in the 90s, the mid-90s, while I was early and mid-90s. I guess I was at Waldorf College. Then it's Waldorf University now. Our local paper had an opinion column. It was really more of just a satire column. As we mentioned last week, I do like guys like Louis Grizzard and Dave Barry. And I also mentioned my father-in-law was a syndicated columnist for lots of small papers in the area, in the region. And his column was called Shootin' the Breeze. Now, he didn't have any of these columns written 30 years ago saved anywhere. But fortunately, the newspapers are all digitized and available in the Forest City archives, which you can freely resource on your own anytime you want to, just by checking it out on the web. And I think if you Google Forest City Archives, it'll come up. I think it's called something else, but it'll be where you want to go. And in that time, we were able to, since that website has come into play, we have been, my wife, Heidi, was able to pull most of these articles off of that website, and she, as a gift, made 3 books, because we were only, for some reason, able to come up with 3 years, 1995, 1998, and 1999. And so she made some books of those articles by year so that we can continue to enjoy them as a family. I always enjoyed them as a young man in college and was really impressed with his writing style. I thought it was like kind of a hometown version of a Dave Barry or a Louis Grizzard. And so I told him that, and we had a great time talking about him and his storytelling ability, which is fantastic. He's had quite an interesting life. Grew up in North Dakota, was an athlete in baseball and in basketball, and became a teacher. He had been in the Peace Corps not too long after the Peace Corps was started by Sergeant Shriver. Went to Columbia for his tour of duty, so to speak. Went back and became a teacher, met my mother-in-law. They got married, and then they started having kids. They taught together up on the reservation, actually, up in North Dakota, and enjoyed their summers fishing and hanging out with friends, etc., etc. He became a vice principal or a principal, I'm not exactly sure which one, a little bit later on at that reservation. And then he invented a game, an interesting mechanical game called Pendoodlum, and the Pendoodlum game really became his ticket. And unfortunately, it never really became the ticket. But they produced a lot of them, made some TV commercials. They went to all of the trade shows. They tried selling them all over the place. And it's kind of it's a pendulum. You got you got a counterweight there, and it's got a pen and different types of markers, and you put a piece of paper on it, and you swing the pendulum, and it makes the marker move in a certain way, and you can do all kinds of cool designs. And they demonstrated it all over the place and traveled together as a family and really put a lot into it. And it just came out before the internet, and they didn't get into the big box stores like they were hoping to, and so eventually they moved to Blue Earth, Minnesota, and my mother-in-law continued to teach there, and my father-in-law took up writing and working for what we call around here the Shopper, which is a free newspaper that people put their classifieds in and whatever it is that they want to sell and advertisements. It's just basically an ad flyer, and to make that paper more interesting, and everybody got it, he started writing these articles early on, Shootin' the Breeze, just for that. And then that expanded into local papers, and that became a thing for the Forest City Summit and many other newspapers in the region, as it just kind of developed into his weekly storytelling observations, I guess, of either things that had happened in his own life or things that were happening in current events at the time, and always with a sense of wit and tongue-in-cheek humor, and I just always enjoyed them. And they kind of disappeared. He went on to work for Winnebago Industries as their Grand National Rally boss, director of the Grand National Rally, and they have the Winnebago Itasca Travelers clubs that were all over the country, and he and my mother-in-law Bev kind of traveled all over in a Winnebago and met with the different state Winnebago Itasca Travelers groups and went to their events and just generally scheduled big caravans that would go to different places, and it was quite an interesting end of his career. He retired from that and hadn't done any more of this writing. So those articles kind of disappeared, but he's always been just a fantastic storyteller. And unfortunately, lately, in the last year or so, some of those stories have started to slip, and his memory is starting to slip, and that's obviously sad and concerning for us. It's something that we're just dealing with here as a family. Some of it expected, but still sad to see. So I thought it would be just a good idea to try to share with you some of those stories that particularly around or about Christmas, from these little selections that we've been able to preserve and to produce them and to let you hear a little bit into the mind and the storytelling ability of my father-in-law, Dennis Burkholder. So it is, this weekend was his birthday, actually. So he's plugging away. And in fact, the first one that that I will read is from his birthday, which would have been back in 1998. This article came out on his birthday, and it just happens to be a story about himself and how he got into public speaking a little bit by being able to work his way through the arts unsuccessfully until he found his way into writing. So an early idea of how he came about to entertain people, although it may not be quite what you expected. And so that's what that is. And here's what we've come up with. It's from December 15th, 1998. Shootin' the Breeze. Open to ridicule. The boy was shy. He lacked the self-assurance of his classmates, who he thought were so talented, well-dressed, good-looking, and confident. He wanted to be just like them, popular, talented, accepted. It didn't come easily. The classic arts were brutal. He couldn't sing a lick even though his volume was more than adequate. La, 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 la. Truthfully, he was totally devoid of any musical talent. Even in the early days of elementary school, he had never been allowed to get his hands on the noisier instruments of the rhythm band. He lusted to play the cymbals. Even banging on the triangle would have appeased his appetite to make music. Wisely, the instructor steered him clear of anything that might be heard above the din. He had to be content to the sandpaper blocks. In soap sculpture, his mind's eye envisioned a majestic elk. He would carefully transform a mundane bar of ivory soap into his vision of this grand animal and its expansive rack of antlers. It would be a gift of love for his mother at Christmas. Unfortunately, his clumsy fingers were overly anxious, and the antlers fell quick prey to the blade of his Boy Scout knife. Soon there was only a small chunk of soap left. The boy had to ask his mother for another bar of soap so he could start again. This time, he was smarter and more careful. He laid the bar of soap flat on his desk. With a pencil, he drew a horizontal line about 1/2 inch from the top of the bar. He carefully cut out anything above this line until he got to a point about 3/4 of an inch from the back of the bar. It was perfect. He wrapped it up and gave it to his mother as a present. "Here, Ma, I carved this just for you. It's a sofa." The tears in his mother's eyes were not imaginary. The boy thought it would be nice to be a pianist. His inner ear could hear himself playing great music to an adoring audience. People would love his music, and in turn, they would love him. This desire to be a pianist did not include any desire to take piano lessons. However, periodically during his adolescence, he would sit down at the family piano. He would carefully slide back the keyboard cover and adjust the piano bench so he was in perfect position to play. Then, with a flourish, he would raise his hands above the keyboard and shake them in front of his chest, vigorously allowing his fingers to completely relax. Thus prepared, he would begin to play, enthusiastically, with vigor, holding all 3 pedals to the metal. In moments, his father, who wore a hearing aid and was nearly deaf, would offer the invocation, "Enough already! Go outside and play!" It always disappointed the boy that the muse had not mysteriously entered his soul, imbuing him with the musical talent of a savant. How strange it was that this boy would find his audience through a class writing assignment. The assignment was to write a poem. The resulting humorous verse prompted the teacher to have the boy recite it at the school Christmas program. Normally, he would have been very nervous to be up in front of an audience. This night, he was inexplicably calm. He began to recite his poem. Almost immediately, a hint of suppressed laughter came from the assembled parents. Thus encouraged, he extemporaneously added wide, sweeping gestures to the next line. The audience began to laugh in earnest. Emboldened, he added previously untapped vocal inflections. Waves and waves of laughter cascaded toward the stage, engulfing the ecstatic performer. He added facial expressions for comical effect. He was truly euphoric. He held the audience in the palm of his hand. The boy had discovered the intoxicating elixir of making people laugh. Finally, he was accepted. The audience loved him. Every time he moved or said a word, it evoked more laughter from the crowd. Never had he been happier. Reluctantly, the boy reached the end of his performance and walked back to take his seat with his classmates. Expecting praise from his friends for his riotous rendition, he was surprised when no one spoke to him. Finally, his pal Buddy broke the silence.
Hey, Denny, your barn door's open.
So one way, obviously, to get your story out there is to just leave your fly open and people will just pay attention to you. Now, that's not something as a public speaker that I use as a tool, I suppose, to keep people's attention. It was said that Winston Churchill loved to run a bread wire, down his cigar, and then he would smoke his cigar, and then that ash would be just tremendously long because the wire would hold the ash on, and everybody would watch in Parliament as he spoke in rapt attention, waiting for that giant ash to fall off. But of course it wouldn't because there was a wire inside of it, and he knew that. So whether it's a bread wire in your cigar as you smoke it in front of Parliament, or you're just a person that keeps the barn door open, it is a way to keep the audience's attention. Now, another story that came out in that same year in 1998, on December 22nd, just before Christmas, that weekly issue came out. And what a fun way to tell a story completely in character between a conversation with a husband and a wife. So at this point, Denny had been himself married for 30 years. And so he was well informed of what it is that that the husband-wife dialogue may sound like. Now, I don't think that my mother-in-law sounds anything like the voice that I tried to put on for Abdullah's wife in this particular story, but wouldn't it be interesting to see what the conversation would be like in a home in Bethlehem back in the day of the Advent, and to hear what that conversation would be like between a husband and a wife if the husband had been suspected of out catting around with his buddy, but really what he had done is happened to stumble upon the amazing scene at the stable behind the inn. So let's hear what Denny Burkholder thinks that conversation might have sounded like, here in another Shooting the Breeze from December 22nd, 1998. The story behind the story.
Abdullah, is that you sneaking into the house?
Ah, yes it is, dear. But I'm not sneaking. Just walking quietly, creeping, if you will.
What's the big idea? Staying out all night without sending a messenger to tell me where you were?
Us. All the messengers were tied up delivering messages to the king, dear.
Yeah, likely story. Where have you been all night? You've been out with Alchemer drinking wine, haven't you?
Oh, dear. We were out following a bright light in the sky.
Ha! A bright light in the sky. Oh, boy, that's a good one.
No, really, dear. It was a miracle.
You should have seen it. Let me remind you, dear Abdullah, that I would have seen it had you brought me with you for a change instead of leaving me home to clean the house as usual.
Really, dear, it was quite amazing. Alkemer and I had been down at the camel auction on the south side of town and were just leaving for home when he spotted a bright light in the sky which seemed to be leading us to the east edge of Bethlehem.
Yeah, it was probably that same light that led you to the house of dancing girls last week.
No, dear. That was more of a bright glow. This was like a star. A very bright star that appeared to get closer and closer to us as we made our way closer to the edge of town.
And had you and Alkemer been drinking?
No, not really. We had toasted Alkemer's success at selling his old saggy-humped camel for 14 drachmas with half a glass, but that was all, honest.
And so, where did this bright light lead you?
Well, we had a little trouble figuring it out. At first, we thought it was taking us to the Weary Travelers Inn, but the manager said that they were full up with no available rooms, so then we just walked around for a while trying to figure it out. Finally, we smelled a very unusual aroma. It was like frankincense and myrrh mixed with labdanum. We finally traced it to a stable out behind the Weary Travelers Inn where some people had gathered.
So, who were the people? And what were they doing in the stable? And what about the light in the sky? You better start filling in some of the blanks here, Buster, or you might end up sleeping in the stable yourself.
Well, there were 3 kings.
3 kings? There were 3 kings in the stable. You expect me to believe that?
Yeah, 3 kings bearing gifts from the Orient. I'm not sure if the kings were from the Orient or if their gifts were. Anyway, they followed the bright star to the stable.
Let me recap. You, Alkemer, and 3 nameless kings from China followed a bright light in the sky to a stable behind the Weary Travelers Inn right here in Bethlehem. The kings had gifts. So, tell me, what were the gifts and who were they for?
Yeah, they had gifts. Frankincense, myrrh, and gold. It was for the baby.
There was a baby in that stable, and kings were giving it perfumed gum and gold?
Yeah.
And where was the baby's mother?
Well, she was there. Her name was Mary. In fact, they called her the Virgin Mary. Her husband Joseph was with her.
Abdullah, a virgin. Do you expect me to believe this story?
Yes, dear, it's all true. It was a miracle.
Abdullah, do you know what a miracle is? I'll tell you what a miracle is. A miracle is when a woman listens to her husband make up wild stories and doesn't make him sleep in the stable. That's a miracle.
Really?
Now go to bed.
It's all the truth. The baby was named Jesus. The angel said a king was born. And one last thing. I want to wish you Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas? What's that supposed to mean?
You'll find out, dear. Tomorrow you'll read all about it in the newspaper. Me and Alkemer might even be in the picture. We were right behind the donkey. I do wish you a Merry Christmas, and that is obviously what this whole month is all about, just kind of telling stories that you can listen to and enjoy as we go through them. One more for you here, and it is the final one. It comes out from December 19th, 1995, a Shootin the Breeze story about the tale of little Samuel and Fiddlesticks and Lost 'em. And of course, you have to keep in mind that at the same time, my brother-in-law was about this age. So I'm not saying that the Browns are the Burkholders in this particular case, but I am guessing that some of the gifts that were asked for in this particular article could have been similar to what my brother-in-law Reed may have been asking for on his Christmas list, and maybe how this young child responds to these gifts. Maybe that is the inspiration for this invented story from my father-in-law, once again, Denny Burkholder, Shootin' the Breeze from December 19th, 1995, the tale of little Samuel and Fiddlesticks and Lost 'em. Mr. Brown was most upset. For 2 months, he and Mrs. Brown had scrimped and saved for Christmas. Every dollar they could save had been hoarded away in their old red apple cookie jar. Each week they counted the money to see how much the total had grown. This year was to be extra special for their 8-year-old son, Samuel. This year, they hoped that Samuel would receive every item mentioned in his letter to Santa. Samuel had asked for a pair of skates. Samuel opened the package which held the black-top hockey skates. They were perfect, just what he had asked for. Samuel had asked for a hockey stick. It's hard to wrap up a hockey stick without giving away what is in the package. Samuel, of course, guessed what it was when he saw the odd-shaped package. He didn't even bother to open it, but just mentally checked it off his list. Samuel had requested a pair of Air Jordan basketball shoes, but he wasn't sure that he would get them because they were quite expensive, and his parents were very poor. Samuel almost smiled when he opened the box and saw that he had gotten them after all. In a moment of wild expectation, Samuel had included a Sega game system on his wish list, knowing fully that it was too much to expect. His parents had worked extra hard to be able to buy it for him. They knew it was too expensive, but they wanted this to be a super extra special Christmas after all. When Samuel opened the package, he thought, my friends will be so envious when they see that I got a Sega. It should have been a wonderful Christmas with all these fine presents and wishes fulfilled, but Samuel did not look completely happy. What is it, Samuel? Mr. Brown asked his young son.
I didn't get my trail bike. At the mall, I told Santa that what I really wanted was a black trail bike. How could he forget to bring me my bike?
Samuel didn't play with his skates or hockey stick. He took off the Air Jordans and shoved them sloppily back into the box. He didn't even bother to hook up the Sega. Instead, he went to his room and sulked. At first, Mr. and Mrs. Brown felt disappointed. Even though his parents tried so hard to make this Christmas special for their son, Samuel still didn't feel happy. Then Mr. Brown's feelings of disappointment changed to chagrin, then bitterness, then anger. He decided that his son must be taught a lesson. Mr. Brown called Santa at the North Pole. Mrs. Claus answered the phone and said that Santa was sleeping, but she would wake him if it was important. Mr. Brown explained what had happened, and Mrs. Claus agreed that it was a sad situation indeed. Soon Mr. Brown and Santa were deep in conversation. It was Santa who had a solution.
This is a sad situation indeed, Mr. Brown. I think this calls for the services of Fiddlesticks and Lost 'em. I don't need to call on them very often, but this case is right up their alley. Don't worry about a thing, Mr. Brown. Fiddlesticks and Lost 'em will take care of this.
Fiddlesticks and Lost 'em were two of Santa's oldest elves. Their only task anymore was to deal with thankless youngsters like Samuel. when Santa brought a child a gift that wasn't appreciated, it was these two graybeards who were sent to resolve the issue. Thus it was that these two ancient elves made the tedious journey to the Brown house. At once, Fiddlesticks spied the unappreciated Air Jordans and handed them to Lostum, who promptly stuffed them into one of his huge pockets. The shoes were soon followed by the Sega game system, then the skates, and finally, the hockey stick. The only gift they left for young Samuel was the box of chocolate-covered cherries that still lay unopened under the tree. Fiddlesticks and Lostum then flew quickly over to a house on 4th Street and slipped the Air Jordans under the tree of young Billy Waters. They were a perfect fit. Billy jumped with glee and hugged his puzzled father and mother. It was a perfect Christmas for Billy. The two elves then delivered the Sega system to Sandy Smithers on Circle Drive. Sandy cried tears of joy when she opened this wonderful gift. Sandy, too, had a perfect Christmas. The skates and hockey stick were delivered to Bobby Waterby, who was the only boy in all of Canada who didn't have a pair of skates. Young Bobby strapped on his new skates and grabbed his hockey stick and hurried to the nearby rink where he joined his pals in a game of hockey. It was a perfect Christmas for Bobby. Fiddlesticks and Lostum returned quickly to the Brown household and whispered a message into the ears of Mr. and Mrs. Brown, who smiled and blinked away a few tears. At least their hard work and sacrifice had made this a happy Christmas for someone. Now a forlorn Samuel entered the room. He searched for his skates. He searched for his stick. He searched for the Air Jordans. He searched for the Sega game system. They weren't to be found. Samuel spoke to his father.
So, where is my stuff anyway?
Mr. Brown stared at his selfish son for a moment, then replied, "Fiddlesticks if I know. You must have lost him." And friends and neighbors, that'll do it. I hope that you enjoyed those 3 stories. It's always, I think, one of the best things about the holidays is sharing stories with your family, gathering with family and friends, spending that special time with one another, sure, exchanging gifts. But I think the best gifts that we have with one another is our memories that we have with each other. Good memories, bad memories, tough memories, hard memories, exciting memories, all of those memories, the stories that make up our lives, yours, mine, all of ours together, those are what is so special. And that's why, whether it is at Christmas time or at the 4th of July or anytime you gather with friends or family, at Thanksgiving, whatever it happens to be, it could be at a wedding, it could be at a funeral, you always end up sharing stories that bring us together, that make us laugh, that make us smile, and sometimes even make us cry. And this time of year, we love to tell the story of the birth of Jesus Christ for Christmas. And as we get closer to Christmas next year, as we get closer to Christmas next week, we have one more story for you that will play next Monday as well. And I look forward to that with the help of the Sunnyside of Life players. It'll be the Christmas version of our final storytelling of the season, and we hope you enjoy that and look forward to that. In the meantime, hope you enjoyed these 3 short stories from my father-in-law, Denny Burkholder, and Shootin' the Breeze articles from back in the day. And until then, until next week, my friends, go out there, do something great, share those stories with one another, hug each other, shake each other's hands, and be the sunny side of someone else's life.
I want to thank all our friends and guests for stopping by for this episode of the Sunny Side of Life. All the Sunny Side of Life players who stopped by, creative support provided every day by my incredible wife Heidi, and our fantastic 4 boys. Thanks to every one of our listeners. That means you. A big shout out to my brothers and sisters in uniform holding the line around the world. Share the word, folks. Let the people know what we're up to. Subscribe so you never miss an episode, and follow us on social media. All skits are written or adapted and directed by me, Troy Thompson, and are produced here at Sunnyside Farm Studios and delivered to all platforms by Buzzsprout. Music and sound effects are provided by Soundstripe. The Sunnyside of Life is a weekly production about our life on the family farmstead here in Iowa, the liberties we prize, and the pursuits which make us happy. Now, none of this is possible without Christ in our lives. For the Lord God is our sun and our shield. He gives us grace and glory. So may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may the sunny side of your life, liberty and pursuits, be in Christ, and made evident unto you each and every day, and give you peace. Hey there, Woo Ball fans. I've got a big update for you regarding our Rise from the Ashes campaign. The fundraising effort currently underway to replace 60 ash trees struck by the emerald ash borer around Bolstor Field. We have some generous donors who have offered to match every donation. That's right, the price for our large replacement trees, the autumn gold ginkgo tree, has been now cut down to just $300 each, thanks to matching donations from our donors. Everyone who donates to the Rise from the Ashes campaign will be recognized in a dedication ceremony next season at the home opener, and will receive a commemorative plaque made from the ash trees we are removing that will make a beautiful addition to your home, office, or wherever you choose to display it. Just go to www.waldorfgridironclub.org and make your donation. Put Rise from the Ashes in the note section, along with whatever name or names you'd like added to your tree recognition. Thanks to all our donors for helping us rise from the ashes and restore the beauty of Bolstor Field for generations of warriors to come.